round. Dr. Priscilla Idele, I'm the Chief of Data and Analytics and Population and Development at the United Nations Population Fund in the headquarters office based in Nairobi. I'm pleased to moderate this session and discussion, which will look at the ongoing census round, as we have already mentioned. And in this session, we'd just like to learn more about how countries can move from standalone censuses operations toward more integrated, digital, inclusive, and sustainable population data systems. So today, we'll hear from our local government and professional colleagues from Kenya, but we shall also hear from international experts on demographic analysis on digital identity and population intelligence, including on registers and country experiences from the rest of the world. The discussion will move in 5 parts. We shall, first of all, hear a brief scene setting, and then local perspectives from Kenya, international experiences, and a moderated cross-cutting discussion where then we shall lead to audience engagement. We shall finally have a discussant who will just provide very brief reflections of what she would have heard in order to summarize it for us. Then, of course, we shall close. So I would like to remind our distinguished, esteemed speakers that I'll keep the time quite tight because we want to keep time so that people can go to other engagements. So please adhere to your time that I will allocate to you, and if you go beyond it, I will politely suggest that you conclude so that we can move forward. So I'm delighted to introduce our esteemed panelists, and after those ground rules, and our panelists include Professor Alfred Agwanda from the University of Nairobi Population and Research Institute, where I did my master's, and I think he taught me at some point. Professor Agwanda, it's so nice to have you on this panel. Then we shall have Mr. Kenneth Angir from the Integrated Population Register System here in Kenya. Mr. Angir, are you in the audience? Yes, please. This place, there. Yeah, I thought you were to climb up here. Please feel free to have a seat. Thank you for joining us. Then Mr. Isaac Chirwa. Mr. Isaac Chirwa, are you in the audience? Okay, all right. From the Malawi National Statistical Office. Welcome, Mr. Chirwa. I think I've met you, Mr. Chirwa. Yeah. So this is tight. Please don't fall. Yeah. It's a little tight here. Yeah. Then we have Dr. Abdul Salam Mohammed, the Director General of the Somalia National Bureau of Statistics. He's so fit, you know, he can just jump over. And again, a colleague, I've met him multiple times, and so it's nice to have all the colleagues that I know here on the panel. Then we have Ms. Paula McLeod from FCDO, who has been, again, a great champion for data. We are always, almost always on the same panel. Welcome, Paula. Then last but not least is Dr. Sachil Kader from World Pop. Again, a great colleague. We have been in another panel this morning. Welcome. So you can see how it's nice to have everybody that you know on the panel. So they will be kind to me, and I will also be kind to them. So as I've mentioned, we shall focus on a few questions to each of you, and I hope that that is what you have been informed. And I will signal at 3 minutes or so if you are running behind time so that you can catch up. So first, we shall open with a framing question that I would like to pose to everybody. And you have about 2 minutes to respond or less. Don't aim to 2 minutes. If you can finish in 1 minute, that will be great. So don't take it that you have to take all the 2 minutes. So just to start with, a general question as a framing is the 2030 census round is just around the corner. Actually, it has started. It started in 2025, last year. But many African countries are still grappling with legacies of traditional paper-based census system. What is the single most important shift that countries need to make right now to be ready for the 2030 census round? So I'll first invite, see who I have on my lineup first. Professor Alfred Agwanda, from your demographic and academic perspective, can you give us that one most important thing that you think we need to take into account?
I think we need to get prepared to start an integrated data system, not just a single traditional system that we pick data every 10 years. We need to rethink, we need to start integrated data system so that both the traditional census, which we cannot ignore, and also registration system put together.
Thank you for being brief for that, integrated. I would have dug more to understand what you mean by that, but I'm also looking at the clock here. Then I'll move on to Mr. Angir. What will be that one thing we need to be prepared? Do you have a yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much. From my perspective, I think what we need to do as we move to 2030 census is that to examine if there's any legal barriers that need to be overcome to have integrated systems. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Integration, legal systems, sometimes that fail us, are important. I'll now move on to Mr. Isaac Chirwa. What will be that one thing?
I think I would like to agree with the professor. I think what I've noted in Africa, I don't think there's a single country which has integrated the use of administrative records to come up with the census takings. I think this is very common in Nordic countries. They are able to integrate their data systems into one population register and are able to do the census without going door to door. So I think if we can build our capacities in that area, so much the better. Otherwise, the censuses are becoming very expensive, and the resource envelope is also becoming thinner and thinner. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Dr. Mohammed, what will be that one thing?
Regarding, what's really so important is institutional capacity building for a number of African countries that requires, consistent capacity building. It's not like, a census not to be considered as a standalone exercise. It requires, kind of some time to be training the capacity of the statisticians in terms of giving them the skills required and issues related to geospatial population modeling, GIS. What's really so important is to be well prepared in terms of also enhancing, improving administrative data so that people's registry and decentralization, interconnection between the different land ministries that work on data and statistical authorities to work line by line and to work closely with each other. So, enhancing statistical capacity, engagement with other land ministries, integrity, transparency, talking to each other in terms of how people and government to share data. That will be really very important.
Thank you. Dr. Mohammed is reinforcing some of the points, and also in addition to working together and making sure that we are collective. Then I'll now move to Dr. Kader.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. I think I agree with all the points that have been raised, but move from a decennial headcount to a continuous geospatial population system. While we are in the preparation of the census, I think we should understand that digital tools alone are not enough. Countries must make geospatial data, including building, settlements, digital enumeration area as the backbone of the census, treat census as a part of a living data ecosystem, not just one-off event, enable continuous update using modeling, administrative data, survey data. So at the end of the day, it's not about counting people every 10 years, it's about where people are all the time. Thank you.
Wonderful. I think if we counted people every day, then we wouldn't need to spend so much money counting them every 10 years. So a great point. Last but not least, Ms. Paula.
So I think, the question for today is to choose, make a choice. Are we doing this or not? As as a wise man says, there is no try. And it's getting the right people together for the right conversations, locking in the commitment to delivering the right census for your country's needs and delivering within the resources which you can commit towards that. To choose. We're doing this.
Thank you for summing up quickly and clearly. So what is clear is that the future of the census is not only about digitizing the enumeration, but also it's about strengthening our wider population data ecosystem, as we have heard about integration with other administrative data systems, so that we have continuous counts rather than waiting for a one point in time. It doesn't mean that we shall stop completely, but we shall figure out other ways to do the data collection more efficiently and also cost effective. So let's begin now on specific questions to each of our panelists. I'll start again with Professor Alfred Agwanda from a demographic and an academic perspective. Are the data needs of Kenya in 2030 fundamentally different from those of 2019? And what should a modern census be designed to measure that past censuses may have missed?
Thank you, Chair. Not much change, but getting better ways to get data. The first thing that we need to refine is how to get information from the people. One of the challenges that we had in 2019-2009 has been data quality, the reporting of information. This has still been a challenge, and we need to think of how best so that people can report accurately the information that they have. One of the greatest problems that we may have found in 2009, 2019, and even the previous ones has been the quality of information that we get from the individuals. Of course, we can appreciate that there's going to be a change because a number of literate people are increasing. Previously, this was a challenge because some people were illiterate. But the proportion is getting smaller and smaller. So we hope that if we ask questions correctly, we get information correctly, and we train the people well, then we should be able to answer questions well. That has been the only challenge that we have had. The quality of reporting information has been the challenge, and that is what we need to improve on. Thank you.
Just to follow up on that, besides the data quality, are there any other data needs? Are there emerging needs that you think Kenya may need to collect that has not been collected before in 2019?
I don't think so. I think we asked too much in 2019. Every country is making the census smaller and smaller. We're asking fewer questions. I was in the US after 2009 census, and when they were revising their questions, their questionnaire, they were removing many questions and only having basic information put in there. I think even as our census was a little bit too big, too many questions that are being asked. So if we can be able to reduce these questions, then we'll be able to efficiently ask them or meaningfully ask the people and people to report the questions. I think the questionnaire has been too big for the current census.
So you are proposing that we make it easier for the respondents rather than collecting more. You are very considerate. Not many researchers say so. So thank you for sharing with us those thoughts that you have about the quality and also reduction in the census questionnaire. I will now move on to Mr. Angir. Mr. Angir, Kenya's integrated population register system is one of the most advanced identity registration systems in Africa. How ready is the system today to serve as a backbone for census frame building and post-enumeration, validation, and what gaps remain?
Thank you, Chair. Just to help the members present to understand what this is, I would like just to draw back a little bit. No, I don't have time. But the process of creating a population register in Kenya dates back to sometime 1989 or 86 down there. Prof may concur. But it was not until 2006 that we actually began the creation of the register. At that time, we evaluated the participating register that would contribute the data to the integrated population register, and the findings were they were all manual. If any automation, they were paper-based Excel sheets, which could not last the time or could not support sharing. So we did ideate and created a population register in the thinking of Kenya at that time. That is that we'll have a central repository that will have rules that would govern the way data is collected from the primary registration agencies, for example, CRVSS, and also from the persons over 18, that is the National Registration Bureau for people being issued identity cards. So this has progressed over the years. We are on our 17th year of operations. So we've really matured, and then we got a lot of data. So we had envisaged that by now we would be able to support the census, the national census, to help them plan, even post-census count. They could actually now go to the register using digital tools to find out whether what would be the variances from the finding from the field. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. So in terms of coverage, interoperability, is that happening the way you expect, or?
Yes. In many ways, the interoperability is very much enhanced. Mm-hmm. The legal obstacles that have been there have been removed, because these agencies, as they were set up, they were not set up to share data. There were legal barriers in sharing data from one institution to the other. So that also had to be cleared away. So as we speak, there is a momentum for each and every register, participating register, to publish their data into the population register in a prescribed manner. That is also in line with what the officers from the KNBS would consume at maturity level. Thank you, Len.
Thank you for that. So that raises a question of trust and also legal frameworks. They were not ready to share data before. So I will ask you another question. Sorry, I'm digging on this.
Okay.
Yeah. So data privacy is a major public concern when governments seek to link identity and census records. How does the IPRS system balance the imperative of data integration with the rights of citizens, and what legal frameworks govern this process?
Thank you very much, Chair. As you can recall, this country is, we've got a new constitution that came up in 2010. Subsequent to that, the act that creates IPRS came out in 2011. And access to information came up in 2016. And 2019, now we had the Data Protection Act of Kenya 2019. And all these are aligned with the sharing of the information across the registers, even with participating institutions that would, these registers would enable, for example, the financial institutions who consume initial registration that are undertaken by government. All this is all aligned at the moment.
Wonderful. So you think the issues around privacy are all understood by both the citizens, but also the team that works on that?
Yeah, most of the citizens, they do, because a lot of public participation goes into these activities. Mm-hmm. When we make new systems, we have to carry out a data privacy impact assessment to see how privacy of citizens will be violated or enhanced by that particular system. And we publish this in public for them to see.
Thank you very much, Mr. Angir. I think we have heard about Kenya's experience, both the promise, but also the sensitivity of building such an integrated system. So it starts always from mistrust to trust. So I hope that you have been able to establish that. I will come and check if my record is also there in your records. But for now, we move now into the international perspectives from colleagues that we have on the panel. I will start with Mr. Isaac Chirwa. Malawi has gone through the experiences of preparing for and conducting a digital census. What was the most difficult operational challenge you encountered, and how did you resolve it?
Yeah, I think we were one of the pioneers of the digital census in 2018. Malawi's population and housing census falls earlier in every round of the census. The 2020 round of censuses, I think there were only maybe 2 countries which were ahead of us. The same thing, I think, with the 2028. So we have Lesotho, Swaziland, and Mozambique. So we are like pioneering. We have very little to learn from. Mostly, others come to learn from us after we have completed ours. So we literally learn from scratch. Right now, one of our challenges was how do we integrate the AI into the census, because we really want to do that. And I think it pays a lot of dividends in terms of financial costs. So I don't know whether we are lucky or it was just a coincidence or something like that. World Pop came to our rescue. They came up with this census mapping model, which uses several parameters, including the building footprints, the satellite image array, the household listing data. I think they use a lot of data to come up with a model, including, of course, we use the 2018 as the base, as the basis, 2018 maps as the basis. So we're just looking at the EAs, whether it is bigger or it should be divided further or not. So I think this challenge, which looked to be so big for us because census mapping alone can be costly, it was costing us, I think, $6 million US. With the coming in of the World POP, I think the cost has been reduced to $2 million US. So I think that was quite a big relief for us, because right now we're right in the middle of doing the census mapping, and I think by end of this year, early next year, we'll have our maps ready. So I think that one of the key challenges that we're facing, especially for the 2030 round census.
Okay, so in terms of operational components that worked out well, or is there something that you would like to share in terms of just the operations in the field, or a deployment, or enumeration?
Yeah, for the 2018 census, we really we also had the similar challenges when the then Commission of Statistics, some of you know Mrs. Mesa Kanyuka, introduced the idea of using CAPI. I think everybody was saying, wow, what is this? How can we buy 30,000 tablets? Where are we going to get the money? I think that was one of the challenges, but somehow she insisted, and we pressed the CAPI census. We managed to get some funding from, that time it was DFID, now it's FCDO. They bought us the tablets, of which we shared with our colleagues in Zambia. After we finished doing the census, we shared with our colleagues in Zambia. Once we got those tablets, I think the other issues were very easy, maybe just programming the tablets, maybe the security issues, deploying them to the field, training the enumerators. I think those are the regular challenges that you would encounter in any census. We didn't have much problems on that.
That is great news. When there is no problem, that's great. And Malawi experience, Malawi is always a front runner. I remember when I was working in public health and mainly focusing on sub-Saharan Africa with Malawi, Malawi moved ahead from developing their own treatment guidelines that they called Option B, which later on became actually a global practice. So I know Malawi always is keen to try new things. And the innovation that is talked about of sharing tablets is something that's really happening across the world that has picked up also for many countries. So I'll now transition to Somalia, where we have challenges not only of modernization or building census systems, but also capacity in fragile and post-conflict settings. So Dr. Mohammed, Somalia faces extraordinary challenges in conducting a national census. What does a future-ready census system realistically look like in a country that's rebuilding its statistical infrastructure? And what lessons does Somalia's experience offer to more stable systems that may take preparedness for granted?
Thank you very much, Dr. Priscilla. Somalia's census experience is shaped by the most complex operating environments in the world. Unlike other countries with stable administrative systems and satellite populations, Somalia faces challenges related to insecurity, climate shocks, nomadic mobility, weak infrastructure, and also a limited historical continuity of census. Particularly, the last census was conducted in 1975. So one of the major actually challenges is nomadic or population mobility. A large segment of Somali population are nomadic or semi-nomadic, while also others are internally displaced due to conflict, droughts, and flooding. So this makes it difficult to apply conventional population estimation methods based on fixed households and permanent structures. And also a second challenge is geographic accessibility and security constraints. There are some areas where it is difficult to reach due to weak infrastructure or insecurity, limiting field supervision and collecting data from those inaccessible areas. So that means data coverage quality and collecting reliable data can be also very difficult. Another major challenge in Somalia is that institutional rebuilding. After Somalia's civil war in 1991, everything collapsed. Statistics also collapsed. However, recently, Somalia National Statistical Bureau was established in 2020 as an autonomous government institution mandated to compile, collect, and disseminate official statistics. A lot of significant progress has been made in recent years. For example, in 2019, the statistical performance indicator, a global metric published by the World Bank, was just 19% in 2019. It increased to 50% in 2023. This means we have conducted a number of large-scale, nationally representative surveys in Somalia. However, there are still challenges, including limited legal and regulatory frameworks, data quality controls, and because of the fragility and institutional disruption that has continued for a long time, Somalia is facing a lot of challenges. However, what we have done so far in terms of conducting a census is that we consider a census as not a standalone single event. What we are doing now is to build the capacity of the institution step by step. We have conducted recently a socio-economic demographic survey with the support of the UNFPA, with some technical technical expertise from Dr. Sajil from World Bank, and also with support from Gates Foundation. And what's really unique in Somalia is that, we just wanted to kind of collect more data through surveys district by district, which will enable us to kind of use geospatial modeling and satellite imagery to estimate the modeling required to capture or to estimate the data that we don't have in other inaccessible areas of the country. So what lessons other countries can learn from us is resilience. Despite living in fragility in conflict-affected setting, we are still using innovation methodologies of collecting data. We use CAPI, computerized assisted better interviews, in terms of collecting data. We have cloud-based storage system to store our data. We have skilled statisticians in terms of also modeling the statistical frames and so on. So that means, despite shocks, in some countries who are stable now may be exposed to climatic shocks or any external shocks. So what they can learn from Somalia is that resilience and also being innovative while also living in fragile, conflict-affected context.
Thank you, Dr. Mohammed, for those reflections that just remind us census preparedness must be understood in context, and you have to be also creative and innovative in how you generate the type of data that you need using a combination of approaches, as he has outlined: surveys, modeling, satellite imagery, and so on. I will now move on to financing, the long-term support for census modernization. Paula, development partners have played a critical role in funding censuses across Africa. But this model raises sustainability concerns. How is FCDO thinking about building long-term national capacity rather than creating census-to-census dependency on external funding?
It's a brilliant question, and it's key to the moment because, you said about choosing to do this, but we have to understand how we resource this census. And I think the first step is to stop thinking of the census as a one-off exercise. We have this traditional view, it happens once every 10 years and it produces a great tome of evidence that we hold aloft and celebrate our brilliant census as a book. But it's not a dusty book to be celebrated. It is very vibrant data. It's also collected, that is a model which does not work for everyone, we've heard. It's not transferable, it's not sustainable, and we have to shift. We have to recognize the moment, and we've got to change. So we're stepping back and we're focusing on what it is that the census actually delivers. There's one pillar of this, which is around that core infrastructure for data collection, where we're starting to build those enumeration areas, the housing frameworks, the population spines. We're also building that capacity, both human and physical, in order to collect, process, analyze, and disseminate these data. It's also, the census is there to provide exceptional insight, but it is a snapshot into the population and that rich diversity of key demographic data. And these are not things that only come once every 10 years. As was in the question, that's not sustainable. We need them all of the time. And they need to be fit for purpose, which means that they're relevant, they're timely, they're trusted, and they're understood. So when we're looking at how we can invest here, we're looking at pillars of the strategy for action on data, and particularly around innovation and modernization. And there's a huge opportunity to bring this to life. We need to think bigger around that census opportunity, both how the census benefits from efficiency. We've heard about the cost framings, the practicalities, those efficiencies. But we can also think of the offer of the census to the modernization agenda. We're talking about using models, better use of administrative systems, and so many other aspects. But these all need to be tested. They need somewhere that they could be tested, they can be triangulated, that they can be ground truthed. And census is a really good opportunity to actually, when we're looking at that hotbed of innovation and new models and new technologies, we can use those within the census process to create some of that truthing, some of the leveling. We can also think of this as part of an offer to the digital and tech community. We need to get those people that are so excited about the AI opportunities and those models to think about how they can be using the census to make, and how it's on us now to articulate how we can make that relevant to their priorities. Don't think of the census as a data update, but help them understand it as a truth update, as a ground sourcing update, and bring them into those investment partnerships. Because that's not about one-off, once every 10 years. This is about using ongoing investment into the census process to benefit such a breadth of stakeholders. And that's a big conversation, but that's also what we can use that census for. It helps us change the lens of how we service the needs of society, and how we make sure that we're really delivering against that modernization strategy for a modern data-empowered society.
Thank you, Ms. Paula. Financing is part of the story, but we are hearing that we need to be innovative, integrate geospatial technology modeling and other components in order to make sure that we count everyone, because everyone counts. So I'll now move over to Dr. Kaden. Population modeling and geospatial tools are increasingly being used between census periods and updates to population estimates. how reliable are these estimates for policy purposes? And is there a risk that countries may begin to use model data as a substitute for a real census rather than as a complement to it?
The short answer, the population modeling output is reliable for policymaking decision if it is used correctly. The short answer for replacement of the census, there is no intentions for the population modeling until now. We can use such a kind of technology to replace the census, because the geospatial population modeling is actually using the ground data, whether that is coming from census or national household survey. But to be able to understand the usefulness of the geospatial population modeling, you need to understand the problems that we have. So in the previous round of the census, on the average, around 30%, there was around 30% undercount in the last round of the census. And that threshold is even much higher if you go to the regional. Like you go to the Latin America, it also exceeds 40, 50% in some of the countries. We have countries like, as Mr. Isaac mentioned, that a National Statistic Office may be facing some financial challenges, so they need innovations. We have countries like Somalia, like Burkina Faso, like Mali, like DRC. They are facing challenges around accessibility. We have countries, even they don't have security challenge, but they have accessibility challenge like we have in Thailand. So the question is, how can we fill those kind of gaps that we have within the census? So that is the kind of the importance of the geospatial population modeling that comes in. It will be a complementary for the census, and they can fill those kind of gaps. The other kind of aspect of the importance of the geospatial population modeling, because as we know until now, even if you are doing a full digital census, you have GPS record for all the household for one census. After a couple of years, you're using the projection. And just to give you an example how the geospatial population modeling is useful for the policy, I have recently been in Pakistan. So they had constant kind of flood in the country. So they told us we are not yet in the position, although they have done a full digital census in 2022-23, but they keep asking from different international organizations, government, policymakers, politicians about how many people were affected by last flood, by current flood, by flood that what happened last year and things like that. Then I had to explain to them how geospatial population modeling can be useful. So I mapped the census projection for them that they have, because it was only available at district level. And then they gave me a sort of like shapefile, which basically explained the extent of the flood. And then I mapped both together and see, look, you have the district boundaries, but you have the flood extent. So it's not always that the flood is covering the entire district. So when flood is coming, it may just cover a small percentage of that kind of district. So to be able to understand or disaggregate the population data that you have from the projection that comes from the census, you can use the geospatial population data to increase the granularity, to create a kind of gridded population estimate that are not maybe 100% reliable, but it can be the best estimate that you can get at that level. And one of the things that we are doing in our kind of group is also we are producing, uncertainty. It is quantified, so it will be very transparent to tell you where the model is performing well and where the model is not performing poor. So I think one of the key things for the geospatial population mobility kind of approach to be more kind of for the National Statistic Office, for the different other organizations to be used, is to build the capacity. And that is one of the things that at Walpole we are very keen that we would like to build the capacity for those kind of organizations, that they understand how these models are working, what is the output looks like, and the model works as good as the input data set. And we have to be very transparent about that.
Thank you, Dr. Kader. I think what we have heard is that modeling or what WorldPop is doing does not replace but complement and complements, particularly in circumstances that we are not able to implement regular or traditional data collection systems, including the census. And so we have to understand how to use the different sources of data. Thank you again. That was really a good setup for a beginning and to set the scene. But I would like us now to look at a little bit more on integrated data systems. So the concept of integration is very, it's a word that floats around in every conversation now, and I hope that everybody understands it. But in practice, these systems often sit in different ministries with different mandates, budgets, political priorities, as we heard from our panelists from Kenya. So what is the most realistic model for achieving this integration in Africa is what we would like to unpack a little bit more. So in this respect, I'll start with, again, our panelist from Kenya, Mr. Angir. What would it take to genuinely fix the civil registration system in Kenya within the next decade? Or in Africa, for that matter, because registration rates remain extremely low, despite all the publicity and the efforts governments are trying to make to improve those rates. What could we do to fix them?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I think from the experience that we've gathered over the decades, we note that civil registration in Kenya was not initially universal. It was not universal. Not everyone was expected to be registered until the later days that it became derogatory that each and every event of birth, death, and such, even marriages, be registered in the course of life. Secondly, the use case of these registers, data that is generated from the registers, were not prevalent, as in they were not being used in everyday life. So lately, it is now becoming mandatory that children, for example, if you give for birth, they be registered, the birth event be registered, and when parents appear for government services, they should display or produce a registration document, for instance, a birth certificate, and this would increase the uptake of the birth registration services. Secondly, as they go to school, they also produce these details for admission for school. But then there's a balance in this so that you don't exclude those people who may not have been registered because of areas where they live is probably out of reach, or they have not been sensitized enough. Like Prof said about literacy level, people don't know the benefit of doing this registration, so you need to balance so that you bring everybody into school. But in our framework right now is that children at that level, they have to produce birth certificates to be registered in school so that they can get other benefits that are associated with that. This would take up the registration. Then as you move up into the age category, let's say when you go to the age of 18, it is required of citizens of this republic that once you attain the age of 18, you enroll for the national identity card. This again increases registration. So when we have this and you integrate them together daily in the way of life, then this increases registration and actually reduces the complexities about registration. Because you see, with identity, when we have identity that is incorporating a biometric, for example, that means the individual record will be uniquely identified. And then meaning that there'll be no duplicate, removing duplicates in the population register. And that makes it accurate as you go along. So those African countries who have not begun this is I would not prescribe a pathway that they would need to follow, but generally, generally speaking, most countries are undertaking registration. And if they do this, they'll be able to now position themselves to offer services to the citizens in a more fashionable manner, whereby citizens identify themselves with identity. And that would be a win-win for them, so that there'll be uptake. It's a give and take for the citizens. You produce a birth certificate or an identifier, then you are given a government service. This would increase the quality of the register as you go along. So that would be our pathway. Then,
please conclude.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then also the use case. Broadly, the use case from the public sector also drives the uptake of the identification systems and also the quality. So I'll stop there. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Ngir. I think what we are hearing is that there has to be value placed on the system before people appreciate why they need to do registration. Then, and of course, there has to be also the value that the government provides from the other end. So the demand and supply factors have to match in order for it to improve. Mr. Chirwa, the same question. What would it take to genuinely fix the civil registration systems in Africa?
I think, thank you, moderator. Maybe I should start with the case of Malawi.
You have 3 minutes.
Yeah, that's the terrain I'm most familiar with. We have just introduced the civil registration systems. Maybe it's barely 20 years old now. So it's a young system which needs to be improved upon quite a lot. The coverage and maybe even quality issues sometimes are not where they should be. And most importantly, I think the collaboration between the National Registration Bureau and our National Statistical Office is very, very minimal. We don't even have any agreement like an MOU, to the extent that we are unable to access the data, maybe through login credentials that can allow us to tap into the data, this very invaluable data source set. So I think moving forward, we need to have these agreements between NSOs and National Registration Bureaus, which will give us the opportunity, especially at NSO, to utilize the data for different purposes, including the censuses. So I think the challenges are twofold. First of all, we need to improve the quality of the CRVS, and on that front, we are talking of coverage as well as the quality. I think the coverage part, I would totally agree with my colleague from here, that maybe the citizens should understand the importance of the civil registrations, because they cannot just do them for the sake of just doing it. They should see the importance, the benefit. What benefit are they getting from maybe even registering a child? In Malawi, I don't see any benefit. If you register your child, childbirth, or you don't register, there's no difference. Your child will still go to school, still go to the hospital. So the benefit is not there. So the undercoverage is most likely going to be very high. So if we can improve, maybe sensitize the communities and even introduce deliberate policies that aimed at promoting the registrations, I think that would be a very big step forward. And then on the side of the NSOs, I think we need to have those the collaborations, the MOUs, so that we're able to tap into the data, and even just generating annual reports, something that rarely happens. Like in Malawi, we only did it once for all these 20 years. Just generating annual reports from the CRVSs, I think that would help us to improve on the importance of these data sets, which is very, very crucial. And we have several other administrative data, even migration data. We can also have such kind of agreements with maybe the Ministry of Homeland Affairs. So I think in a nutshell, these are my thoughts.
Thank you, Mr. Chirwa, for reinforcing some of the points made by Mr. Ngir, but also bringing up the issue of data use. I think data use is the poorest component of along the data life cycle. We are good in collecting, but not good in making use of it and informing our decisions. So lastly, on this question, I would like to turn to Dr. Mohammed. What will be that thing, if you could say 1, 2, 3 things that we need to fix our systems to work? CRVS.
Yeah.
3 minutes.
Yeah, first of all, civil registration is the backbone of continuous population data system because it records births, deaths, and also other events as they happen. And in many African countries, including Somalia, the system is still weak and remain incomplete. For example, in Somalia, the reality is very clear from the data, and according to the Somali Health and Demographic Survey of 2020, shows that only 21% of births occur in health facilities, while nearly 79% happen at home. So this means that if most births happen outside facilities, then vital events are not automatically captured by the system. So civil registration cannot work as purely administrative or technical system. On its own, it must be closely integrated into service delivery, especially health centers, where births and deaths are most likely to be observed. So what's really important is, number one, political commitment from any top leadership of any country in Africa. They should be willing to encourage the line ministries and national statistical offices to work closely with each other. It's also important to build institutions of any African country, because when people perceive the benefits of registration, then they will, go into the health centers and IDs systems. So it's really important, there has to be a conversation between the national statistical offices and the local government institutions, and should be also something that is coming from the willingness of the top political leadership of the country. In many fragile, contexts like Somalia, engagement and also interlink between different line ministries is really very weak. For example, in Somalia, we have the federal government of Somalia, and then we have federal member states. And because of the fragility and weak political consensus between the FGS and federal member states, it is really difficult to think about sharing the administrative data, what to talk about the registration and all of this. So what's really important for Somalia and for many African countries is understanding the crucial role of data for decision making, to build the legal and regulatory frameworks so that registration is to be a mandatory issue instead of something that is not mandatory. So I think that's really important, and I hope that as countries advance, as institutions gain strength economically, it will be feasible to kind of strengthen their institutions, which requires also finance, investment in data, working together to improve the lives of the community in terms of enhancing data-driven decision-making. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for outlining that. I think in a context of where you are, there are those things that you have outlined that would really be useful. Political commitment is a key a factor everywhere. And if that commitment is not there, then we might as well forget about whatever the context and the structures of our systems. Service delivery linkages across ministries, those are quite fragile and very weak in many countries and really compromises the amount of data that we get, but also the quality of the data itself. I'll now move on to data protection, cybersecurity, and accountability. Digitization of census operations raises the stakes for cybersecurity and data breaches. How should national statistical offices think about protecting sensitive personal data, and who should be responsible when things go wrong? So this question, I will pose it first to Mr. Angir again, because you have this experience. So please share with us, what should we do about protecting this sensitive information?
Thank you. Yes, data protection is very important in the sense that you need trust of the citizens who you collect and keep their data, especially if you are collecting personally identifiable information. In my view, I think most states need to adopt a data protection standards that ensures that data of citizens remain anonymized or not shared with the parties that are not known to these data subjects. But also, whenever sharing happens, it should be for the benefit of the data subject. This way, you build principles that will align with the law, as well as committing to the data subjects that I'm not going to share your data. Or whenever I do so, it will be for your benefit, for economic gains, or for safety and saving lives in terms of medical situations. This way is the approach that we have taken, that we not collecting data to share with parties who are not known to the data subject in case we share personally identifiable information. We have to inbuilt what's called customer onboarding forms that are validated by regulators that shows that whatever you are requesting for the citizen is actually authorized by the sector in which we work, in case you share data outside. This way, we have seen we build confidence with the citizens. But it's a very thorny and wide aspect whereby people feel that their data would be breached. That is about sharing. But what about the actors? Could there be actors outside there who would be in need of such huge statistical data that are held by repositories like NSOs? The answer is yes. So we must proactively develop and evolve measures to ensure that the actors don't get this. It is a continuous process, a continuous work that we must do. Because if we put fear instead of work, then fear will overtake the aspect of the benefit that we'll get from such huge aspect of data. Thank you.
Thank you again, and for that response. I'll take this question now outside of the national statistical system. Paula, you and I are part of the global architecture that's always looking at some of these guidelines and recommendations on data protection, cybersecurity, and accountability. So what do you think about this issue of personal data, and who should be responsible when things go wrong?
So, I mean, this is a key question, isn't it? We have a community, though, who think about this day and night, and that is our statistical community. We have fundamental principles around how we collect, govern, and use our data, and there is a vast amount of experience here about how we do this well, how we protect the rights, dignities, and security of citizen data, but then ensure that we're maximising the utility of it. There's always the balance, isn't it? How do we keep our data secure, but how do we maximise the utility? And we need to keep remembering that the statistical community are experts in this, but the data ecosystem is evolving. We've now got digital systems, we've got new data actors, and so we've got this broadening range of stakeholders. So we need to not lose sight of that anchor, particularly when we're talking about census, which is anchored within our statistical legislation and our census legislation, but we need to look about how that needs to be updated and evolved for modern data and digital systems. We need to recognise sort of maybe, what's the role of the Ministry of ICT, the Ministry, the other key people within this space. I'm not going to list them because I will get it wrong, but there is a lot of learning here. But again, that is something that a modern statistics office is familiar with. So let's just make sure that we maintain that seat at the table when we're talking about the data protection. And in terms of accountability, it's, again, that is mandated. If you are collecting, if you are the Census Commissioner and it's been collected under your name, you are ultimately responsible for the integrity and protection of those data. But we also need to hold ourselves individually and collectively responsible for making sure that each part of the system is in place. We need to make sure we have the right governance and regulation at a national and regional level in place to keep our data secure, but to maximise the utility. And we need to keep learning those lessons from each other around what works and what doesn't. So, lessons of old, but let's evolve them for systems of now and of the future.
Thank you, Paula. Again, reiterating the fact of accountability and making sure we have the right governance and everybody understands, but also making sure that the data providers do understand that the data does benefit them as well as the government and every other development partner. So now, those that have not spoken, don't think that you are escaping this. I'm moving now to the final cross-cutting issue, which is on inclusion. Whether the new methods are actually helping us count the people who have historically been missed. So this question is on the hardest to count populations, people such as people living in informal settlements, pastoralists that Dr. Mohammed mentioned about, refugees, the homeless, and mobile populations, who are often, most of the time, missing in terms of services, and the census data also often misses them. Are our current technologies and methods closing this gap, or are we counting the already counted more accurately while still missing the most vulnerable? So that question, I will start with Dr. Kader.
Thank you very much. The short answer is not yet. But it has been progressed significantly over the last few years, considering the fact that a lot of organizations are willing to make partnerships to make their data available. So if I just give you an example, current example that we are doing in Somalia, for example, we have part of the survey, the pilot that we're doing in Somalia is also covering the internally displaced camp. And those type of camps and also the slum areas in different parts of the world are the fast-growing settlement. And of course, the ideal scenario for having comprehensive data is going to the ground and regularly collect data. But realistically, this is not possible because it's time and cost, very time and cost intensive. So with the help of availability of the satellite imagery, the effective partnership from different organizations, now we are progressing much faster. But the fact that those type of hard to reach people are in a specific part of the countries that are not easily seen by the normal satellite imagery. So we have to rely on the commercial satellite imagery that are have very high resolution kind of scale. So having that kind of data set and partnership with the private sectors and them to be more generous providing those data could actually help us to build a much more a better and much more accurate geospatial modelings to be able to update those population data. And when we are talking about the hard to reach kind of population, there are two parts when it comes to the data collections, even during the census. One is about the population estimate in those areas, and one is about tracking those people, because maybe by the time that you are designing your census mapping, you assume that you have, for example, some nomadic population in certain areas, but by the time that the enumerator goes to the ground, that you may not be able to see them because they have left somewhere. So having that kind of availability partnership with, for example, telecom companies, we have been presented, for example, with one of the Chinese companies that they have shown us a very detailed map, satellite imagery on the night light. Even seeing the light from car, this kind of data set could be useful in the future, but it is not yet available for the public, for the researchers, for the policymakers to be able to use them on the time.
Thank you. So the simple answer is no. So we still need to be creative, and you'll help us with that.
We hope so.
Thank you. Professor Gwanda, what do you think? Are we counting the already counted and still missing, or are we counting them?
I think there's a small portion that is still not yet being reached, particularly those homeless. The nomadic populations, we still don't have good estimates for them, but we still do not count properly the homeless. That is a big problem, and we need to rethink of how to count them. Thank you.
Thank you. So we still have those populations, and we are aware, and Professor Agwanda will help us figure out what to do with those as well. Dr. Mohammed?
Thank you very much. In fact, one of the lessons that one can learn from Somalia is disaggregating population into 4 settlements, like urban, rural, nomadic, and IDPs, because of there are large segments of our population are, nomadic and semi-nomadic, but also there are a large proportion of Somalis who are also internally displaced within the country. So whenever we design a questionnaire or a survey, we do include a strata specific to IDPs, to nomadic, and to urban and rural areas. So yes, over the past few years, we have conducted a number of large-scale surveys in Somalia, whereby we have taken into account the most vulnerable population in terms of their socio-economic demographic profiles and information that are needed to capture the homeless and the most vulnerable. And of course, when we are talking about those inaccessible areas, I really understand that some parts of the country, out of the 18 pre-war regions of Somalia, 1 region is inaccessible due to security situation, and we don't have any data from that area. Of course, we are learning a lesson from World Pop to kind of use geospatial and satellite imagery to estimate those inaccessible areas. But I think one of the good lessons that other countries can learn from us is how to kind of have the data related to the most vulnerable in Somalia. And of course, we are working a census, and as I also highlighted in my first intervention, that the last census was conducted in 1975 in Somalia. And whenever we are, preparing a census, as we prepare a census, we will also take into those most vulnerable into consideration, into account. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Excellent response. I think segmentation and being intentional of the populations that are not counted, so that there is already an approach built into the system or of the data collection itself. And of course, using then other techniques, as he has reiterated, the World Pop, approach to geospatial estimates in order to figure out what populations live in those inaccessible regions. Last but not least, Mr. Chirwa, are we counting the already counted, or are we counting the missed ones as well?
I think for Malawi, I can say that we are counting everybody. We are leaving no one behind. We have deliberate policies to go and reach out to those hidden populations or the hard-to-reach populations, including the street kids. So maybe we'll map out where they sleep, and at night we have to send teams to find them and enumerate them. Talk of islands, maybe remote islands, we still send people there. So I don't know of any segment of the population that has been left out. If that is the case, maybe be very, very tiny proportion. But I think technology should not exclude some groups of people. If anything, it should help us to include everyone.
Thank you. Thank you. I think Malawi seems to have all the nice experiences. So those who want to learn from the nice ones, Malawi is the place to be. Those who want to learn from the challenging one, Somalia is the place to be.
That's why we have almost all the countries that have been coming to Malawi to learn from us.
I know, yeah. I'm part of the problem that brings them there. So I also want just to engage the audience in case you have some reflections or some questions to the panelists. If you think you need to take the floor, please let me know. We shall give only an opportunity for 2 questions, and then we move to the closure. Any? Tapiwa? And my colleague from this side. So Tapiwa, and there and there. If you can say your name and then affiliation, and then ask the question.
Thank you very much. My name is Joseph Mwetwa from the Zambia Statistics Agency. Just to learn from Malawi, in terms of populations, just like the one you mentioned, the street kids, and let's just say the homeless populations, do you have, let's say, health data on these populations, or maybe it's just the basic counts? Thank you.
Thank you. That was brief and nice. Tapiwa, you can grab one of these, Tapiwa. Yeah. Sorry.
Thank you. We've heard about the importance of establishing integrated data systems as a pathway towards eventually being able to use administrative data for census purposes. My question is a general question to any of the panelists may wish to respond. So the question is, apart from legislation, what other actions do you suggest for NSOs to take as they prepare for this transition to using administrative data for census purposes? Thank you.
Thank you. Another excellent question, because a lot of countries are trying to transition to register-based systems. Are they ready for purpose, or are we jumping the rope here? So the first question was for Malawi specifically. Are we just counting numbers, or are we caring about their health status and others?
I think a population census is based on a questionnaire. So I think you administer the questionnaire to the person that you are meeting. So the questionnaire that would be as administered to the household is the same questionnaire that you administer to the street kid or the homeless person. So you get all the information, be it a demographic, maybe education, disability, any question that is in the questionnaire is administered. So you collect all the information, plus the information of the status of their housing condition, which is homeless. So that would be the only additional information.
Thank you, thank you. I think because of time, I would not allow more questions, but the panelists will be available in case there's something burning. Feel free to catch them after this session. So we've heard a lot about censuses, from integration of systems to data protection and cybersecurity and accountability issues, to experiences from development context to humanitarian context, from academia to national systems, from World Pop to FCDO. So diverse, expertise that we have heard about. So now I would like to invite Ms. Pauline Okeo, who will just provide brief reflections of what she's been able to gather from all this and whether we made sense to her or not, depending on what she will tell us. Ms. Okeo, please.
Thank you so much to the panelists for the very many insights you've shared, and also to the organizers for this opportunity. So I'd like to share my reflections based on something I heard earlier today. I'll structure it based on that insight. The first aspect is on responsiveness. It being very important that we do realize, as you've all been echoing, that this is not a one-off system. This is a living data set that needs to be continuously updated. So my call to many people here, especially the statistics agencies, is to rely on authoritative sources such as World Pop and many other authoritative sources that are there to help you feed in and add on to this information and get the necessary insights. The second aspect is on accuracy and accountability. We all know very well that the census process is a tedious process. It's very involving. No matter how much preparedness we can apply, there's always the context of something getting out of our hands. So my call again is, we have technology that continues to evolve over time. It ideally is supposed to help us to augment our work, to make us more accurate, to make us more efficient. So I would invite you also to leverage those technical capabilities into your work. So we're looking at AI, we're looking at Earth observations, we're looking at bringing in data from different sources and incorporating it into your work to make it easier. And the last one is on the aspect of productivity. So for many countries that are here, they're African. Africa has the 20 fastest growing economies. It also has the 20 fastest growing populations, but you're also a very data scarce continent. So how can we leverage all of these things together? We have young professionals who are innovators. So I invite again the statistical agencies and all other partners involved in the census process. Let's involve these innovators to move away from, to include them more into the census process on the aspect of making use of the data. So involve them in understanding, what does this data mean? How can this be leveraged so that they can build localized solutions to enhance service delivery within their locality. And lastly, I'm part of ESRI, and I just want to reaffirm ESRI's commitment to the census process. We consider ourselves as partners to many agencies that are here and beyond, and particularly for Africa, we've set up mechanisms to enhance our support to you. So with that, thank you very much, and I look forward to more engagement over the course of the week. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Ms. Okeo is the Senior Solutions Engineer at ESRI. I think everybody here knows what ESRI is. I know it's a long acronym, but I will just say ESRI. So thank you so much for those reflections, authoritativeness of the systems, accuracy, data use, productivity, and engagement of young innovators, and of course, collaborating and partnering with ESRI to make sure that we get the right solutions out there. So thank you, Pauline. Thank you to all our esteemed panelists. All of you did excellent. I was trying to figure out who I can score poor, but I couldn't find. So all the scores are the same. So excellent. So you have been very directive, but also thoughtful in your reflections. And today's conversation has shown us that the future of census is not simply digital. It's about integration. It's about trust, inclusiveness, and also sustainability. So the task before us, therefore, is to prepare early, invest in our systems wisely, and strengthen our national systems to ensure that everyone is counted, because everyone counts. So thank you again, and enjoy the rest of the Global Data Festival. So may I request the panelists just to have a little photo with me? Oh, no, all of us. and then I will invite the Director, Population and Social Statistics, Ms. Rosemary Bowen. I'm looking at you right here. Welcome, please. You take the photo with us, and I hear you have a very nice message for us as well. I like nice messages. Yeah. So the place is a little tight.